Big 12. We're not necessarily talking college football realignment, but we are doing a preseason preview for the Big 12 standings and record prediction. I'm Josh George. Let's get into it. Bottom to top in the standings. Starting with the Kansas Jayhawks. Lance Leipold beat Texas last year and almost beat Oklahoma. And a big thing to note is Travis Goff, athletic director of KU, has decided to invest less in other sports, basketball included, and more into football, trying to put an emphasis there. And in Vegas, their projected win total went from their over/under went from 1 win to 2.5 wins in 2 weeks, as people can continually bet the over. So they're expected to win about 2 games this year. I've got them 2-10 and 1-8 in conference play. Texas Tech. Joey McGrew comes in at head coach. Big Texas guy, top recruiter. This team went from dead last in the Big 12 in recruiting to 7th in the Big 12 in recruiting after hiring him. The biggest hire he made was Zach Kidley, who of course coached Zappy at Western Kentucky, broke lots of records, did really well. But it's a new offense. They've got 7 guys back and 7 guys back on defense, but a defense that was only 86th in the nation last year in total defense. And they were last in field position in the Big 12. They're just not there yet. And we'll see what McGrew can do in the coming years. I've got them 4-8 and 2-7 in conference play. Now, Iowa State. Look, Iowa State did not live up to the hype. They were supposed to be a Big 12 contender, maybe even in the Big 12 championship. I don't necessarily see them improving from where they were last year. They've only got 3 starters back on defense and 5 back on offense. Their biggest returner is Xavier Hutchinson, wide receiver, and without some of the guys, some of the tight ends and things that surrounded him last year, we will really see what Matt Campbell has done, to see if he had another great recruiting cycle, to see if these guys are way better than what they're projected as. But right now, it's hard to see. I've got them 4-8, 2-7 in conference play. Now, to the TCU Horned Frogs. They bring in Sonny Dykes as a head coach, who hired Garrett Riley as an offensive coordinator, and a team that was the brother of Lincoln Riley, and they were 11th in offensive efficiency last season. They also have 2 good options at quarterback, whether it's Max Duggan or Chandler Morris. Their biggest question is Joe Gibbsby at defense. They were 9th in the Big 12 in defense. They do have 7 starters back on defense, and their biggest, the most interesting thing is, where will DJ Allen play? He's a 5-star freshman. Will he end up as a wide receiver or as a defensive back? And they do have a tough schedule, playing 2 non-con games on the road. I've got them 5-7 and 3-6 in conference play. West Virginia. Neil Brown, hot seat, question mark. 6-7 last season. 3 starters back on defense. Dead last in turnovers in the Big 12. But J.T. Daniels, 5-star transfer, one of many, coming into the Big 12 and the number 1 home field advantage in the Big 12. But they will play 10 Power 5 opponents this season. The most in the FBS. That tough schedule, 6-6 and 4-5. That's what I project West Virginia to be at in the coming season. Now to the Kansas State Wildcats. They boast 7 all-conference selections, most notable Deuce Vaughn. He averaged 9.6 yards per carry at the running back position and is a match made in heaven with Chris Kleiman. Him and quarterback Adrian Martinez, one of the many transfer quarterbacks into this league, will make this team a run first, run second, maybe even run third offense. And as Martinez was ordered by Scott Frost in a Colorado game a couple years ago to tuck the ball and run more than he threw the ball. This team was also third in the Big 12 in their turnover margin, and have 5 starters back on their defense. But most notably, they were number 1 in the Big 12 in special teams. Could pay huge dividends for them. The biggest question mark is there a talent discrepancy among Kansas State and some of the other teams in the Big 12, as they rank 9th in the 247 composite? I've got them 8-4 and 5-4 in conference play. The Baylor Bears, the conference champs, have already named a starter, Blake Shelton. Dave Aranda and his defense was really good last season, number 2 in conference and number 10 in the nation, and we all expect them to be just as good this season. The big question mark for Baylor is offense. Can Blake be the guy that improves this offense from 92nd in the nation in passing offense to up what it needs to be? They're only projected at 29 points per game, and that's what worries me. They're going to need to score some points because there are some good offenses in the Big 12. I've got them 9-3 and 6-3 in conference play. The Texas Longhorns. They bring in a transfer quarterback named Quinn Ewers, 5-star quarterback from that Ohio State University. And they, of course, have the number 1 projected running back in the nation in Bijan Robinson. They also have Xavier Worthy, which is listed in a wide receiver room as the number 2 wide receiver room in the nation. They also brought in the number 1 offensive line class in the country in 2022. And they're projected to have the number 2 offense in the nation in 2022. Here's the question mark. 100th. They were 100th in the nation in total defense. Will that improve? Is it a culture problem? The eyes of Texas are upon you, Steve Sarkisian. What can you do? And what will the special teams look like with the departure of Dicker the kicker? And they have a big prove-it game. Are they back? They have that Alabama game. When it all comes down to it, when the chips fall where they will, I have the Longhorns 9-3 and 7-2 in the Big 12 Conference. Now, OSU or Oklahoma State. Look, when it comes down to it, they had the best defense in the conference last season. They bring a new defensive coordinator, Derek Mason, who is running very similar schemes to what Knowles did last season, which is huge for the 5 starters coming back on defense. They should be a top defense again this season. And they were 1 play away from winning the conference last season. Their biggest question mark is Spencer Sanders. He can be turnover prone from time to time. In fact, this team was 72nd in turnovers last season. That's not good. They need to control the ball and let Spencer be more of a game manager instead of trying to do it all on 1 play. I think that's the biggest key for Oklahoma State. I project them 10-2, 7-2 in conference play. Now to the Oklahoma Sooners. Lots of turnover here. We'll start with the offense. Jeff Lebby brings in a new offense and his choice at quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, who has 8,037 passing yards in his college career. And he has rushed for 9.3 yards per play at quarterback. And he joins a crew of wide receivers, including Mims, Weiss, and Drake Stoops, a team that averaged 39 points per game, including and this stat is skewed because they ended up scoring 76 points against an FCS opponent. So it's probably higher than it should be. But Lebby, over the last 4 years at Ole Miss and UCF, has coached teams to 40 points per game, 1 more than what was averaged last season by the Sooners. So this offense could improve from where it was last season. Now on defense. Venables, top 5 defense over the last 5 seasons. But, and we all know, Venables, great defenses. Not necessarily a worry. Can he be a head coach? He has coached under Bill Snyder, Bob Stoops, and Dabo Swinney. In that time, he has been part of 3 national championship teams and 13 conference championship teams. But is there too much newness around this program? My projection is 11-1 and 8-1 in conference play. The conference championship, according to these projections, would feature a Bedlam rematch. Here's the thing. When it comes to Bedlam, OU leads the series 90-19, and OSU has only beaten OU in back-to-back seasons 5 times, in 32-33, in 44-45, in 65-66, in 97-98, in 01, and in 02. And after beating them last year, it just makes sense that OU would beat them this year for the Big 12 champs. That would put OU 12-1 and Oklahoma State 10-3. I'm Josh George. This is my Big 12 college football conference projection.